From the BBC World Service, in association with ABC and Akashvani, this is Stumped.
Hello and welcome to Stumped, your intercontinental hit of news, features and debate from the quirky world of cricket. I'm Alison Mitchell in the BBC commentary box at Lord's for the World Test Championship final. The sun is out, the outfield is lush and green, and there is cricket royalty everywhere you look, and rugby royalty as well. I was in the long room on day one to see Springboks legend Brian Habana applauding the South African openers out onto the field. And of course, there is commentary royalty here as well. Jim Maxwell is alongside me in the commentary box for Stump this week. How are you, Jim?
Lovely to be here, sitting next to you, Ali, at this famous place, the home of cricket. It takes me back. The first time I came to this ground in 1972, I was playing cricket in England and actually got into the pavilion down there and watched Bob Massey take 16 wickets in the game. So that was a lovely introduction. And amongst other things, this ground has been very kind to Australians over the years. They've won more matches here than any other test ground in England.
Well, I wonder if Lord's is going to be as kind to India when they take England on, I think, next month, isn't it? And I hope the weather's going to be okay too. This is Charu Sharma for Akashvani. I suppose no prizes for guessing what I would have liked to have been at Lord's as well, but I'm quite happy being at home in Bangalore, and it's nice to be home.
I'll tell you what, there's a lot of anticipation, Charu, for the India series, but at the moment the focus on Lord's is this World Test Championship final. And later in the show, we're going to hear from two Test legends from each of the countries competing here, South Africa and Australia, on the state of the men's Test game in their countries. But first, Jim, yes, how exciting is it for you to be back at Lord's in this sort of capacity and the experience of this showpiece one-off match?
I love these neutral games. We should have more of them. Lots of lovely memories of being at this place, even though you could fall over if you walked on the ground a few times because it slopes 8 feet from one side to the other.
Which we get a lovely view of when we're elevated here, don't we? Looking back towards the terracotta-built pavilion with the white seating in front. And the crowd has been good. Talk about a neutral test match. Plenty of Australian and South Africans. Charu, you mentioned India's men. I mean, they are preparing for the test series at the moment. They are here in England. Do you think the players have got any interest in what unfolds here, or will they just be focusing on what they've got coming up?
Well, I certainly think they've got one eye on what's going on, and if I might add, one regretful eye, because they would have liked to have been there in that World Test Championship final. They failed narrowly. Their own fault, I suppose. Losing 0-3 to New Zealand at home was terrible, and of course they didn't cover themselves in glory in Australia either. But yes, they will be paying attention to how Lord's is playing, and they'll be hoping for good weather as well. But I think the bowlers particularly will be very keen to find out how the pitches are behaving at Lord's. Otherwise, of course, they've got their hands full. They're luckily playing a few matches before their first test match, and things seem to be reasonably under control. Some of the batsmen are scoring runs, so they won't be overly concerned, but they are there for a test match series, and they will certainly be keeping a very close eye on the World Test Championship final.
Charu, India weren't always powerhouses. I mean, of course, the IPL has propelled the country financially over the last 18 years. But yeah, how have you witnessed Test cricket evolving in your home country?
Well, it's not just the IPL, but T20 before that and one-day internationals as well that brought in the money into cricket from the Indian standpoint. So I think after the 1983 World Cup win, there was this cataclysmic change in Indian cricket, and a lot more attention and commerce came into the game. But yeah, I mean, let's not forget, India took 30 years to win their first test match, from 30 to 33 when they went to England to 52 when they won in Madras against England. And of course, another 16 years, I think it was 1968, that they won their first test overseas, and of course the series as well against New Zealand. But, yeah, I mean, while test cricket was the only thing, it was still okay. The grounds were full, people paid full attention. But I think that attention has been diluted for sure because of one-day cricket earlier and now T20, and especially with franchise cricket and the IPL being so powerful commercially and otherwise, test cricket is certainly suffering in India to the extent where a lot of the state associations are not particularly happy hosting a test match because it's 5 days of not too much revenue and a lot of expenses involved. Indian cricket itself has, of course, morphed a bit as well. It's done rather well from the dreary draws of 80s and 90s to much more winning since the 2000s. And of course, now India is expected to win every match they play, every test match as well. But I think a lot of the old-timers particularly still do know and declare that Australia England, and South Africa are the big frontiers, and that's where India needs to be winning in test matches away.
From the BBC World Service, this is Stumped on Akashvani.
Next on Stumped, the ICC have just announced 7 new additions to the ICC Hall of Fame, which recognises some of the finest cricketers around the world, men and women who have been heavily influential in the development of the game as well. They are India's MS Dhoni, Australia's Matthew Hayden, Daniel Vittori of New Zealand, Hashim Amla and Graeme Smith of South Africa, and England's Sarah Taylor, double World Cup winner and game-changing wicketkeeper, along with Pakistan's Sana Mir, who is one of a number of captains in that list. She was a skilled spinner and advocate for women's cricketers in her own country, and nothing short of inspirational, although she never got the chance to play a test match. Well, I've been lucky enough to speak to a couple of those Hall of Famers this week at Lord's. Former South African captain and opening bat Graeme Smith was one, and I asked him how it felt to be inducted into the Hall of Fame.
It was a great night. It was emotional. I had my father there and some friends, and great crop of players alongside me to be inducted with, and it was special, and I guess reward for a lot of hard work.
The build-up all around this World Test Championship final. What do you make of this as a showpiece occasion, and what it does for putting the game of Test cricket on a pedestal right now?
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. I think it's important. It's important. I've said Test cricket is not going to grow into new nations, but if we can protect the nations that play it and play it well now at the moment, then that's what we want.
Do you feel generally optimistic about the state of Test cricket and that it does have a future?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think for all of us that played over 100 tests and given it a lot, you desperately want to see the game do well. I mean, who knows what the real youngsters coming through are feeling about the game. For us, it's our traditional mindset. It's what we grew up loving, and you hope that can transfer onto kind of the new generations coming through. I mean, obviously T20 cricket is going to break the molds in terms of new regions, the growth of the game, Olympics, non-cricket playing nations taking it up. But if we can protect the core elements of Test cricket, I think it'll be really special.
So that was former South Africa captain Graeme Smith, who is now in charge of the SA20 League in South Africa. And Jim and Charu, it was interesting listening to him talk at the MCC Cricket Connects event, where he gave quite a bit of an insight into work that the SA20 teams do within their communities, which I think can sometimes get overlooked at franchise level, where we think of it as sort of polarising the game and taking away from the Test game, or taking away from cricket overall in some aspects. But the franchise leagues have a real role to play in getting, those youngsters in, giving them their first experience of Test cricket, whether it's community projects, whether it's schools projects. So I think that inspiration piece and what leagues and teams, and it happens in the IPL, doesn't it, as well, are doing, reaching out into their local community and sometimes doing developmental work, the work that a home board in some respects can't afford to do. But Jim, when it comes to South Africa and Test cricket, and what he said about them reaching the final here has kind of brought the conversation, around South African Test cricket. And so them featuring in this showpiece final, do you feel it's in a sense, a real beacon of hope for the elevation of the Test game there?
I don't think we should get too mesmerised about Test cricket. It's cricket that's important. If you're going to reach out to a wider market, you've got to be playing Milo cricket or something to get the interest. And obviously, the youngsters will see role models at the top level playing some form of cricket for their country. Hopefully, spiritually, substantively, you want it to be Test cricket. But this is the beauty of cricket. We have to remember this. There are very few sports that are as versatile in the format as cricket. So you've got to keep the name of cricket out there. I still remember this years ago with Belinda Clark in the Australian team, the star player. I said, the cricket you're playing now is getting better and better, but no one knows who you are. You have no profile. So you've got to get the profile of the game out there.
Building heroes is a huge part, isn't it, of attracting youngsters, but just elevating those who are on the stage of cricket, whatever the format is. Charu Smith, said he was optimistic about the future of Test cricket there, but believes it's going to come down to the youngsters really, taking on that mantle and wanting to get involved in following the game, eventually playing in the game. And you were talking about youngsters before. What did you make to what he had to say?
Well, I agree with what he says. There's no doubt that the younger generation and the one after that, they need to hold the mantle. They need to bear the responsibility of taking anything forward, whether it's a sport, and we're talking about test match cricket. But we've got to weigh that against all the rest of the options they have. And of course, sport is just one of the, 25 options that a youth has growing up. And then you talk about different forms of the game. What is the most lucrative, the most attractive, the most popular? Obviously, the younger ones will tend to go there, and it's not Test cricket. I don't think it lends itself to the excitement that, say, a T20 can. And the youngsters will seek excitement. So one has to wonder whether the youngsters want to take the game of Test match cricket forward or not. Is there space for it? Is there increasing space for it? Probably not.
Space is another question, isn't it, in terms of the calendar? I wonder whether youngsters, they love the excitement of T20 cricket. Maybe as they get older, they will actually drift towards the testing themselves to that more extreme challenge in a format where your name sort of etches in the psyche in history in a different way. Well, we've heard a little bit about where South Africa men's Test cricket is at. What about Australia, where 5 home tests a summer are ingrained into the sporting schedule? We can hear from another cricketing legend, Matthew Hayden, who began by telling me about his emotions on receiving that Hall of Fame honour.
When you think about those that have gone before you, and you have a little nod towards those incredible athletes and champions of their country, it does give you a really overwhelming sense of joy.
And you're able to celebrate with not your entire family, but most of your family were at the Abbey Road Studios, which is a pretty special place as well.
Yes, the venue chosen by the ICC was spectacular. When you think back to the names, the star movies, the various instruments, the spaces which largely, a little bit like cricket, remain unchanged. You look out at the Lord's Pavilion, there's great parallels between Abbey Road Studios and our great game as well. And the fact that it's a collaboration, and cricket's that. You'd be nothing without the players that I was so fortunate to play with through the probably 3 distinctive eras of cricket that I've played: non-professional, semi and fully professional. There are some things though that are really timeless about the sport, and that piece of collaboration, whether it be an orchestral sense, to a beautiful clinical voice. That could be, Sir Clive Lloyd, Sir Vivian Richards, my favourite probably Sunil Gavaskar, who we work together a lot. These are names that no one will ever forget in history.
You had the honour of walking out with the mace at the start of the World Test Championship final. Does that also just add to your sense of, history and occasion around such a showpiece as this?
We're so lucky, Ali, you're in the same boat, that we get a chance to see cricket unfold. And really, when you think of the shorter versions, it's got its own space. When you think about the classics of Test match cricket and you think about where this is being played, the legacy of Lords, the legacy of the MCC, the home of cricket, the spectacular relationship that we've had over so many years with this venue.
This place has the tradition, there's a big crowd outside. What for those countries who are struggling a bit to meet the financial needs of Test cricket? Do you worry about where it might be going in the future?
Yeah, there's huge worries around how Test cricket will survive. At best, I think how it can just stay a traditional sport amongst the aggressive takeover of T20 cricket, in particular franchise cricket, and how that sort of marries into the landscape of one-day cricket. These are all great challenges for the game, something we certainly won't be able to solve in this interview, but great minds understand the importance of the game, and it has been a great survivor. And there are certain key elements. When you think of the great sporting events, they survive because people attend them. And when you looked out, one of the things when I was standing over that mace, looking over this magnificent ground, forget the pavilion, is just how many people were in it. And that's Test cricket. It's still revered and it's still loved.
Can it be seen as a modern game, though? It gets described as a traditional game, but can it also be a modern game that brings spectators in from all over the world?
It's a tough question because, music, if we go back to that conversation around Abbey Road, you'll always remember the song from John Lennon and the lyrics behind Imagine. That will stand the test of time till eternity, I believe. But there's always new artists coming along, always new collaborations, always new opportunities to thrive in the space of that musical world. And cricket is a bit the same. Test cricket has to be prized as something that is revered and, I guess, reimagined in the essence that there will be new countries coming and going. How the game manages its funds to support countries like the West Indies that have such a unique flavour and such a huge potential, but in Test match cricket, do the kids want to play? I'm not sure, and that's our biggest challenge.
So that was Matthew Hayden, former Australian opener. We keep coming back to, seems, two strong elements, the kids. And I tend to feel that, if adults, if their, influential older siblings, parents are loving Test cricket, that can be handed down. I mean, it's part of why I got to know and got to love Test cricket. So children, kids and finance, Charu, seems to be two big threads. Do you feel the same?
Alison, what doesn't change in our world? Everything changes all the time. And I suppose it's generational, you're right. But what's the generation? Let's call it 20 years. And if the older generation's passed a few things down to the younger one, and if it's not really working, then within 20 years, I think what the parents are talking to children about, even that changes. I mean, who in India would have been talking about pizzas to their children in 1940? Nobody. Now, new parents would probably take the children for a pizza. So things will continue to change. And I think the younger generation today, if they're, say, 35, having some new children, they're not likely to be talking about the glories of Test match cricket to their children. They're probably going to talk about the T20 stars and all the innovative strokes and all the wonderful, new, smashing, popular things about the game. And yes, the records of Test match cricket will remain, but the excitement and the commerce will all remain, and the popularity, the visibility, the fame with white ball cricket, because that is taking the game forward and hoping to spread it to different parts of the world. You do want to be known in a much larger part of the world for your achievements. Why just 3 or 5 countries? I fear for Test match cricket because all of us are right. I think even Matthew Hayden says, I fear for it in the future. And I suppose having a 4-day game might alleviate the problem for a short while, but it's still too much time. And there's no harm hanging on to the history and remembering it all the wonderful moments. But I think the future is where the children will look at, and that does seem to be white ball cricket.
Well, that was all we've got time for on this week's Stumped on Akashvani. Don't forget you can follow us on X. We're at BBCWS Sport and use the hashtag BBC Stumped. And you can watch us on YouTube as well if you go to the BBC World Service on YouTube. My thanks to Charu Sharma, Jim Maxwell and to all of you for listening. Speak to you next week. Bye-bye.
Stumped is a BBC Sport production for the BBC World Service in association with ABC and Akashvani.